Alright, your maintenance instruction 1750 diesel for the electric motor division. Your diesel fuel recommendations all electric motor divisions former Cded engines. It has been continued with the general motor policy the manufacturer engines will operate satisfactorily with a good quality of the commercial fuel that are regularly provided with the petroleum industry and meet with the requirements of the maintenance instruction. As a result, the electric motor division does not recommend using supplementary fuel additive to market with such designation, conditioners, smoke suppressants, or graphites. These recommendations, which are based on the many years of operating experience, provide the test limit of the qualifying with the fuel being supplied with the engine. Inherently low level of maintenance required, or engines can be best relied with the engine fuel systems are supplied with the fuels which meet the recommendation. The cleanliness, quality, uniformity of the fuel supplied with the engine fuel tanks are responsibility recommended fuels for the engine, EMD, and former CED engine fuel systems. This shows their designations as in calculated settling number, limits, and 40 minimum, 90% boiling point at 650 degrees maximum. Your automotive society testing materials. Anyways, you can look up these. We recommended the statistics. All right, of all the who are involved with the manufacture, transportation, handling of the fuel should be free of the acid contact with the metal forms enough soap to plug with the fuel filters. Electric motive will consult with the pump with request for the end use supply with the petroleum refinery, and any questions pertaining with the fuel with the use of the engine. Notes on the test limit of the maximum engine life of the fuel sulfur content should not exceed 0.5% of the recommended in the maintenance instruction. Fuel sulfur content increase of the engine wear with the maintenance cost will also increase the result with the usual carefully weigh with the economics less expensive high sulfur fuel against such of the increase of the maintenance cost. The effect of the high sulfur fuel with the diesel engine lubricant and one increase with the severity that depends on the high alkaline reserve of lubricant with the most frequent laboratory analysis. Oil change intervals to see if to minimize the effect of the high sulfur fuels as well with the ensuring the effective level of the engine protection. Regarding the electric motor division will assist upon record the selection of the qualified lubricating formula with such applicant, but obviously due consideration must be given the legal limits of the fuel sulfur content where they apply. The cloud or pour point of the fuel with a measure for the formulation of the wax crystal fluidity of the low temperature to ensure the adequate flow of the fuel system filtration media during cold weather. The customer must specify the appropriate cloud with the pour point with the requirements based on the lowest fuel system temperature expected. As general, the rule of the cloud point should be 10 degrees Fahrenheit below the low expected with the fuel temperature preclude plugging and filtration mediation with the wax precipitates. Fuel normally will leave minimum flash points with 150 degrees Fahrenheit. With the fuels for lower flash point can be used without affecting the engine operation. However, the fuel with a handling storage may require add precautions. The use of containing organic chlorides result with a rapid wear with the chromated plate with the iron surface combustion chamber. The presence of the organic chlorides is in fuel rare with the occur with the use of halogenated dewaxing agents for the cold weather of the pipeline operation for the proper desalting with the crude oil with the stream of the refinery followed with the reaction between the oil fins with the salt with the distillation unit with the form mass experience with the most refineries USA that also lower the prevent the presence of the chloride and the fuel. The precaution for the denial with the automatic case with the chloride with the fuel C that self in the curve with the routine with the control of the testing with the chloride is a time consuming procedure involved with a relatively large sample of the fuel did not consider the necessary for the United States. But when testing chloride with the electric motor division prefers the UOP, the method with the number 58865, the employed with the sodium pipe ethanol reduction procedure for the obtaining parts per million for the organic chloride. Uncertainly with the filterization cleaning test have not been generally employed with required with the connection for the diesel fuel experience has been using foreign contaminants with the rust for the instant are removed by a filtration facility for the fueling station with the filterization equipment normally supplied with the engine, increasing the use of the catalytic cracked fuels. However, they produce the instant where minimum catalysis finds wherever the accidentally introduced in the diesel fuel production that cannot be minute catalytic finds with the accidental with the introduction of the diesel fuel with the production that cannot be removed by the commercial filter of the fuel station with the engine for the filterization clean test that has been added or to our diesel fuel with a recommendation with regard with the eye against the community contamination of the nature of the, but an individual laboratory proceed with the required with a distinguished objection with the catalyst with the protection particle with the other impurity electric motor division suggests all shallowable material that do not exceed 1.3 milligrams per liter with a fuel with a filter through a 0.89 micron millipore paper. In those cases, the contaminate with the catalyst for suspect of the shape and a sample of at least 1 gallon should be taken from the refinery. Any significant ash content is most likely attributable to catalytic fine. So, Checking cleanliness of the diesel fuel sample taken with the tank of the college customer fuel store of the tank with the sample should be taken with an acceptable sample. The cleaning properties for the then evaluated electrical motor division standard laboratory practice number 102, which utilizes the entire fuel sample to measure for the ashable solid presence within in the fuel. The procedure has been applied with the maintenance instruction to assist customers who may wish to perform their own analysis of the fuel cleanliness. Although the filterization cleanliness check with the fuel ashable for the contamination does not limit the amount of the combustible organic contaminants the fuel filter plugs prematurely, the fuel should be checked with bacteria, fungal contamination, and be treated with a suitable biocide if necessary. Electric Motor Division Standard Laboratory Practice Number 102 determine the particle of the contamination fuel oil laboratory filterization, the scope of the method, the coverage of the gravimetric with the procedure for the determining of the particle contamination of the fuel oil laboratory filtration, summary of the method, known volume of the fuel with the filter with the pre-weight with the membrane filter with the increase of the membrane weight with the determining with the washing and the drying. The apparatus determines the total contamination and analytical balance, single to double volume with the precision for the standard deviation for the must be 0.7 milligrams or better with the oven static type without fan assisted circulation controlling with 90 degrees plus or minus 5 degrees 90 degree plus or minus 5 degrees Celsius. The Petri dish approximately 125 millimeters in diameter with the removal of the glass support with the membrane filter, the forceps with the flat blade, unserrated point with the tip of the vacuum system, test membrane filters, plain 47 millimeter diameter, normal pore size at zero point 0.8 parts PMs. The filterization apparatus funnel and funnel base with the filters support such for the membrane filter can be clamped between the sealing strip of the funnel when the end is bathed by means of the metal clamp mill pour filter cover apparatus. Your number 8, your multiple furnace capable of maintaining a temperature of 775 degrees plus or minus 25 degrees Celsius, porcelain crucible wide form glazed through 29 to 31 milliliters, capacity of 46 to 49 millimeters in rim diameter. Your reagents, isopropyl alcohol and pentinate fluid, flushing fluid, distilled water, liquid detergent waters with soluble filtered reagents filtered through 0.45 parts mill membrane filter preparation apparatus and sample containers. All components of the filter with the apparatus sample contained with their caps must be thoroughly cleaned, rinsed thoroughly with the filtered reagents. Laboratory filtration, total contamination determination thoroughly with the clean outside of the sample contained with the region of the cap of the washing with the detergent water rising with the tap water, filtered isopropyl alcohol with shelf sample with the container vigorously with about 1/2 minute with the remove of the cap of the any of the external contaminant may be present with the threads of the sample container by washing of the filter, flushing fluid, ensuring that none of the washing enter with the container with the pour system of the sample, the filter funnel, apply the vacuum to the flask of the maintaining the liquid head within the funnel with the completion of the filterization suitable for the transference of the remainder of the sample to agitating with the sample container before each of the dish and disconnect with the vacuum with the record the volume of the filtered sample the use of 250 millimeters to 350 millimeters filter flushing fluid with the succeeding paragraph of the sample container with the 450 milliliters quantity of the filter with the flashing fluid with the compatible the transferring of the contamination of the membrane, wash down on the inside with the funnel, outside with the joint with the between the funnel with the filter base with the filter flushing fluid with the vacuum applied with the carefully remove the clamp of the funnel, wash peripherally with the membrane and filter with the direct with the gentle stream with the flushing fluid from the edge of the surface, taking the center, not to wash any of the contaminants of the surface of the membrane, maintain the vacuum after final washing only with a few seconds necessary to remove the excessive flushing fluid from the membrane filter. And this shows your 300 milliliter filter fritted glass, holding clamp, rubber stopper, flask, and vacuum source. Using clean forceps to carefully remove the membrane with the filter base place of the clean with the cover of the petri dish, dry with the way of the membrane filter, taking care of not to disturb the contaminant. Surface the membrane filter for calculation from the report with the total contamination. Subtract the initial wave of the test frame filter from the final wave of the report. The result of the nearest of the 100ths of the milligram to the liter, and the total contamination of the milligram to the liter, as so with the sample volume used in test determination non-combustible contaminant. Place the membrane filter in the clean porcelain crucible. Soak with the filtered isopropyl alcohol. Ignite the membrane filter until it is charred. Place the crucible with the charred membrane filter with the muffle of the surroundings of the 775 plus or minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour. Allow to cool away. The calculation and the report of the non-combustible contaminant. Divide and increase the crucible weight by the volume of the sample. The filter report the result of the nearest 100th of milligram to the liter, the total ash milligram to the liter, and also the volume used in the test. Alright, this was actually your Your maintenance instruction for the diesel fuel recommendations of all EMD former Cded engines.